Hey class, this is Mr. Clark, and these are the video lecture notes for History 17B, Chapter 19, The Growing Pains of Urbanization, 1870 to 1900. Next slide. There's the outline of the chapter. First section is entitled Urbanization and Its Challenges. Urbanization spread rapidly in the mid-19th century due to a confluence of factors. New technologies such as electricity and steam engines transformed factory work. Next slide. These technologies allowed factories to move closer to urban centers and away from rivers. Next slide. The growth of factories created a massive need for workers. Next slide. As cities grew, they were often unable to cope with this rapid influx of workers, and the living conditions for the working class were terrible. Next slide. Tight living quarters with inadequate plumbing and sanitation led to widespread illness such as cholera. Next slide. Churches, civic organizations, and the secular settlement house movement all sought to provide some relief to the urban working class, but conditions remained brutal for many new city dwellers. Next slide. Second section of this chapter is entitled The African American Great Migration and New European Immigration. For both African Americans and immigrants arriving from southeastern Europe, a combination of push and pull factors influenced their migration to American urban centers. And here are some lists of some of those push and pull factors. Next slide. African Americans moved away from the racial violence and limited opportunities that existed in the rural South, seeking wages and steady work, as well as the opportunity to vote safely as freemen. And here's a map that shows this so-called Great Migration of that period. Next slide. However, African Americans quickly learned that racial discrimination and violence were not limited to the South. This is a photograph of a lynching that took place. It looks like in Kentucky. And that's just an example of lynchings that took place in the 1800s all over the South and the North. Next slide. For European immigrants, famine and persecution led them to seek a new life in the United States. Next slide. City residents blamed recent arrivals for the ills of the cities, from overcrowding to a rise in crime. Next slide. Activist groups pushed for anti-immigration legislation, seeking to limit the waves of immigrants that sought a better future in the United States. Next slide. Burgeoning cities brought together both rich and poor and working class and upper class. By the way, this is a new section, Relief from the Chaos of Urban Life. Next slide. For the working poor, amusement parks and baseball games offered inexpensive entertainment and a brief break from the squalor of tenement houses. I believe this is Coney Island here, New York. Next slide. For the emerging middle class of salaried professionals, an escape to the suburbs kept them removed from the city's chaos outside of working hours. Next slide. And for the wealthy, immersion in the arts and culture, as well as inclusion in the social register, allowed them to socialize exclusively with those they felt were of the same social status. Here's a performance in Carnegie Hall, New York. Artist depiction. Next slide. The City Beautiful movement benefited all city dwellers, with its emphasis on public green spaces and more beautiful and practical city boulevards. Really, for the first time in history, cities were planned by local governments, and the attempt was made to beautify them and to make them more hospitable. Next slide. The next section is entitled Change Reflected in Thought and Writing. Many Americans were overwhelmed by the rapid pace and scale of change at the close of the 1800s. Here's a primitive automobile. Next slide. Authors and thinkers tried to assess the meaning of the country's seismic shifts in culture and society through their work. Here's a photograph of Mark Twain. Next slide. Fiction writers often used realism in an attempt to paint an accurate portrait of how people were living at the time. Henry James is one of those authors. Next slide. Proponents of economic development and cultural change cited social Darwinism as an acceptable model to explain why some people succeeded and others failed in American society. Next slide. Other philosophers looked more closely at Darwin's work and sought to apply a model of proof and pragmatism to all ideas and institutions. Next slide. Other sociologists and philosophers criticized the changes of the era, citing the inequalities found in the new industrial economy and its negative effects on workers. Next slide. And that's it for the video notes.